Hello and welcome to Kakaaki, the African Voice on African Independent Television. I am Adora Sydney Jack, you're most welcome. Now, of course, China on Monday formally handed over a newly completed $56.5 million headquarters complex to the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, in Abuja. The new complex marks one of the Beijing's most prominent institutional projects in West Africa. The project is positioned as a flagship infrastructure gift intended to strengthen regional administrative capacity, and Chinese officials describe the building as a symbol of demand-driven cooperation and non-interference diplomacy, while the ECOWAS leadership praised the speed of delivery and collaboration between Chinese and regional technical teams. Beyond the gesture, analysts have come up with a number of matters arising from the developments. Of course, says under the new global order where nothing seems to go for nothing, ECOWAS not left itself open to being influenced and probably manipulated by China, which has never hidden its desire to have a foothold on developments in the West African sub-region. Another group of skeptics say ECOWAS has bigger issues to deal with than working from an ultra-modern secretariat, and the sub-region's politics is currently defined by a sharp divide between democratic stability and a rising cool contagion in the Sahel, which led to what is popularly the Sahelian split, leading to the creation of the Alliance of Sahel States, following the formal withdrawal, of course, of countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger from the bloc in January 2025. The three nations, all under military rule, following coup, formed the Alliance of Sahel States to create their own political and monetary union, despite ECOWAS entreaties to win them back. The failure of the bloc to strengthen ties through weak attempts to create a common currency and traces of mistrust among members suggests that ECOWAS has bigger problems than having a new secretariat. So on Kakaaki this Thursday, we will be looking at the merits and fears of the handover of the new secretariat and where ECOWAS really stands as a regional bloc. Joining us to do this is Leonard Aro, a media development, social transformation and environment expert. Nigeria's aviation industry, of course, is once again edging towards crisis, and that's what we'll be looking at after we've split from talking about ECOWAS into the next conversation. Of course, the spiraling cost of Jet One fuel threatens to ground domestic airlines and disrupt travel across the country. What began as a steady rise in operating costs has now snowballed into a full-blown emergency, with operators warning that flights may be suspended if urgent action is not taken. Now, there are strong indications that airlines may halt operations anytime from now, despite President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's approval of a 30% discount on outstanding debts owed by the Nigerian airlines to help alleviate the high cost of doing business and last-ditch talks to prevent the shutdown. Now, is a shutdown on course? What are the short and long-term solutions to Nigeria's aviation crisis? We will be getting a first-hand situation update from Director of Public Affairs and Consumer Protection at the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, Michael Achimugu, Nigeria, joined, of course, the rest of the world to continue to look at the issues of petrol and the hike in PMS. But let's see how that works out with the world politics and talking about the aviation later on in the show. We'll move away from that and we'll go to World Malaria Day. Nigeria joins the rest of the world to commemorate World Malaria Day 2026, observed on April 25th. The day being a Saturday meant events to mark the day began in earnest this week, with many still ongoing this year's theme, driven to end malaria. Now we can, now we must. It's both a message of hope and a call to urgent action. And Nigeria tops the world's malaria charts. Accounting for Nigeria, of course, has the world's highest malaria burden and, of course, approximately 27% of global cases and over 30% of global deaths. Now, for more than 2 decades, and federal governments, as well as the FCT, have been working in collaboration with its partners to scale up proven innovations. How successful have these interventions as innovations been? What more does Nigeria do to win the war against malaria? On Kakaaki this morning, we will be part of the World Malaria Day's observation as we seek answers to these questions from our guest, Chuks Alu, Monitoring and Evaluation Officer, FCT Malaria Elimination Program. Dr. Olu Tomi Shodipo, State Program Manager, Seasonal Malaria Chemo Prevention at Malaria Consortium. And the two will be our guests this morning to look at how we want to kick malaria out of Nigeria. But remember that you can be part of the program, of course, by sending your views and comments to all our social media handles on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube at Africa Independent TV. So you can stay up to date with the latest news from around the world. In the meantime, let's go around the world by joining the news desk in a moment. Stay with us. This is the World News at Kakaaki, the African Voice. You're welcome. Now, oil prices have surged sharply above $118 per barrel as fears intensify over a prolonged disruption to global energy supplies caused by the ongoing conflict involving Iran. Brent crude briefly reached $119, marking its highest level this month and reflecting a rapid escalation in market anxiety. Now, the spike follows reports that President Donald Trump has instructed aides to prepare for an extended blockade of Iranian ports, signaling a sustained effort to pressure Tehran economically. Now, energy executives, including Chevron chief Mike Wyth, met Trump at the White House to assess how the conflict would affect American consumers. Markets interpreted the meeting as confirmation that the Strait of Hormuz will remain effectively closed for an extended period, further restricting global supply. The strategic waterway normally carries around 1/5 of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas, marking its disruption critical to global markets. Iran has responded by continuing to restrict shipping through the strait, warning earlier that vessels approaching the area could be targeted amid escalating hostilities. The restrictions follow U.S. and Israeli strikes that began on 28 February, intensifying a cycle of retaliation that has unsettled energy flows. Now, Iran has called on the United States to abandon what it describes as illegal and irrational demands, insisting Washington can no longer dictate policies to sovereign nations. The remarks were made by Iranian Defense Ministry spokesman Reza Tlaibani.
Speaking during a visit to Kyrgyzstan for a meeting of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Defense Minister Tlaibani said Iran remains committed to strengthening its defense capacities while supporting allied nations. Separately, Iranian military officials say the country remains on high alert with updated military targets and preparedness measures in place. Efforts to ease tensions have so far yielded no breakthrough, despite a recent proposal by Tehran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and pause nuclear decisions until after the conflict subsides. The proposal, reportedly convened through intermediaries, is seen as an attempt to break the diplomatic deadlock amid global calls for de-escalation.
Now, leaders from Gulf nations have gathered in Saudi Arabia for their first in-person summit since the outbreak of the Iranian war, signaling growing urgency to stabilize the region. The meeting in Jeddah comes amidst continued corruption to global energy markets and rising fears of prolonged conflict. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman hosted representatives from across the Gulf Cooperation Council, including leaders from Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait. Discussions focused on coordinating responses to escalating regional and international challenges linked to the war. The summit reflects mounting concern over the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, a vital route for global energy supplies that has been heavily disrupted during the conflict. Gulf states have stressed the need for the waterway to reopen under a durable and long-term agreement. Talks also coincided with renewed diplomatic efforts as the United States considers an Iranian proposal aimed at ending hostilities and restoring maritime traffic. Despite a ceasefire declared on April 8th, uncertainty remains over whether a lasting settlement can be achieved. Regional tensions have been heightened by attacks on energy infrastructure across Gulf countries, with missile and drone strikes targeting key installations during the conflict. Now, Russia has announced a scaled-back Victory Day parade in Moscow, citing heightened security concerns linked to the ongoing conflict with Ukraine. Now, the annual event on May 9 will proceed without heavy military equipment or cadet formations for the first time in years. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said the changes were necessary due to what officials describe as a growing threat from Ukrainian strikes. Authorities have pledged to implement extensive measures to ensure safety while maintaining the symbolic importance of the event. The decision reflects a broader shift as Ukraine intensifies long-range attacks deep inside Russian territory, targeting infrastructure and military-related sites. Moscow has reported multiple drone interceptions in recent weeks, including incidents near key cities. Despite the scaled-down format, the parade will still feature personnel from various branches of the armed forces and a planned aerial display. Now, state television will also broadcast footages of troops engaged in operating in Ukraine, reinforcing the wartime narrative. Security measures are expected to include restrictions on mobile communications and increased surveillance across Moscow during the commemoration. Now, King Charles III has reaffirmed the strong ties between the United States and the United Kingdom, describing the relationship as an unbreakable bond of history and heritage. He made the remarks during a state dinner hosted by President Donald Trump at the White House.
The story of Britain and America is...
The king reflected on the evolution of relations between both nations, noting their journey from former adversaries to close allies. His speech included light-hearted moments with references to ongoing developments at the White House.
The story of Britain and America is one of reconciliation from adversaries to the closest of allies, not always perhaps following the straightest path. As you said yourself, Mr. President, during your own state visit at Windsor Castle last year, ours is an unbreakable bond of history and heritage, culture and commerce, industry and invention. And we are determined to face the future together.
Earlier in the day, King Charles held a private meeting with President Trump in the Oval Office. He also addressed the U.S. Congress, becoming the first British monarch to do so since Queen Elizabeth II in 1991. The four-day visit is aimed at reinforcing diplomatic ties amid recent tensions between Washington and London. The royal couple is expected to continue their tour with visits to New York and Virginia.
The United Kingdom has expelled a Russian diplomat in response to Moscow's earlier removal of a British embassy official, marking another escalation in diplomatic tensions. The move underscores the continued deterioration of relations linked to the war in Ukraine. Now, British authorities described Russia's previous action as unjustified and accompanied by a hostile public campaign against UK personnel. In response, London revoked the accreditation of an unnamed Russian diplomat stationed in the country. The dispute follows accusations by Russia that a British official has engaged in espionage activities, claims that the UK has firmly denied the incident is part of a broader pattern of reciprocal expulsions that have intensified since the invasion of Ukraine. Tensions have also been fueled by security concerns in the North Atlantic, where UK Defense Secretary John Haley reported intercepting a Russian mission near critical undersea infrastructure. Although no damage was confirmed, the incident heightened fears of covert operations. Undersea cables play a crucial role in maintaining Britain's connectivity, carrying the majority of its internet traffic. Now, France has urged the citizens to leave Mali immediately following a surge in coordinated attacks by separatist and Islamist groups across the country. Now, the advisory highlights growing instability in the region already facing prolonged security challenges, and violence erupted over the weekend with explosions and gunfire reported in multiple locations, including the capital Bamako. In Kati, a key military hub, defense leader Sadio Kamara was killed in what authorities described as a suicide bombing. Separatist forces have seized control of the northern city of Kidal, while armed groups signaled intentions to expand operations into all the regions. The development marks a significant escalation in the conflict involving Tuareg rebels and jihadist factions. Mali's military leader, General Assimi Goïta, has stated that the situation is under control, insisting that government forces has inflicted heavy losses on attackers. However, ongoing clashes suggest that security conditions remain highly volatile. International concerns have grown as the foreign governments, including the United Kingdom and the United States, issued similar warnings to their citizens. Now, Madagascar has detained a former French serviceman over an alleged plot to destabilize the country, intensifying tensions with France. Authorities say the case involves a broader network accused of planning disruptive actions against key infrastructure. Prosecutors confirmed that the suspect, identified as Guy Barrett, has been placed in pretrial detention alongside other alleged accomplices. Charges include conspiracy, spreading false information, and attempts to sabotage critical facilities such as power installations. The investigation also led to the expulsion of a French embassy agent, further straining diplomatic relations between the two countries. Madagascar's government has linked the individual to activities connected to the alleged plot. France has rejected the accusations, summoning Madagascar's diplomatic representative in Paris to protest the decision. Officials describe the claims as unfounded and difficult and understand, given long-standing ties between the nations. The developments, come against a backdrop of political instability in Madagascar, where President Michael Randrianirina took power following protests last year. Families of victims from a deadly school shooting in Canada have filed multiple lawsuits against Operia and its chief executive, Sam Altman, alleging failures in preventing the attack. Now, the legal action centers on claims that warning signs were identified but not reported to authorities. The case stems from a February shooting in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, where 8 people, including 6 children, were killed. Investigations revealed that the suspect's interactions with ChatGPT had been flagged months before the incident. According to the lawsuits, OpenAI's safety team identified concerning references to violence and recommended notifying law enforcement. However, the company's leadership allegedly chose not to escalate the issue, a decision now under legal scrutiny. The legal filings accused the company of negligence and argued that it failed to attack despite having knowledge of potential risk. Lawyers representing the families have indicated that additional lawsuits may follow as many more evidence is gathered. OpenAI has responded by emphasizing its policies against misuse of its tools and outlining steps taken to strengthen safeguards. Now, 2 people have died after a small aircraft crashed into a hangar at Parafield Airport in Adelaide, South Australia. Authorities say the twin-engine plane burst into flames on impact, triggering an emergency response.
The Australian Transport Safety Bureau has launched an investigation into the incident. Police said the area was immediately evacuated as emergency services battled the fire, which has now been extinguished. Officials confirmed several other sustained injuries. Parafield Airport, a hub for light aircraft and flight training, remains closed as investigations continue.
And that's it for the world news headlines. Up next is Kakaaki Business. Stay with us.
Hello and welcome to Kakaaki Business. The European Union on Wednesday said Meta has failed to prevent children under 13 from accessing its social media platforms, Facebook and Instagram, in violation of the blog's online safety rules, citing preliminary findings from its probe, which could lead to fines of up to 6% of the company's annual global revenue. The charges under the Digital Service Act came after a 2-year investigation by the European Commission. The EU tech enforcer said Meta did not do enough to enforce its restriction on children under 13 from using Facebook and Instagram, and that measures to identify and remove them when they do access the services were inadequate. The move comes amid growing concerns worldwide about the impact of social media on children, businesses and governments, prompting calls on big tech to be more proactive and take more effective measures. And Eurozone Economic Sentiment Indicator ESI fell for the third consecutive month to 93.0 in April 2026, 18 its lowest level since November 2020, and missing market expectations of 95.2, reflecting growing concerns over the economic outlook driven by the escalating Iran war. Sentiment worsened across all sectors, with the sharpest drops among consumers, service providers and retailers. Confidence also dipped for manufacturers and constructors among the largest EU economies. The ESI fell notably in Germany, France, Italy and the Netherlands, while Spain saw a more modest decline. On the pricing front, consumer inflation expectation rose 5.6 points to 49.1, the biggest level since April 2022, while manufacturers' selling price expectations increased 10.2 points to an over 3-year high of 31.1. Spain's annual inflation rate is to 3.2% in April 2026 from 3.4% in March, which was the highest level since June 2024, coming in below forecasts of 3.4%, according to preliminary data. The slowdown was driven by a sharper decline in electricity prices, partly reflecting government measures to cushion the impact of the Iran war, alongside a more moderate increase in package holiday prices compared with April 2025. On the other hand, fuel and lubricant prices for personal vehicles continued to rise amid the conflict in the Middle East. Core inflation, which excludes volatile items such as food and energy, edged down to 2.8% from 2.9%. By contrast, the EU harmonized annual rate accelerated to 3.5%, a new high since June 2024, or from 3.4% in March, and in line with the expectations of a monthly basis. Consumer price rose 0.4%, slowing from 1.2% in March and below forecast of 0.6%, while the harmonized index increased 0.7%, slightly above expectations of 0.6% after a 1.7% rise in March. The Federal Character Commission is strengthening transparency in Nigeria's public service system with a digital platform that allows citizens to better track its operation and service delivery. Speaking at the event in Abuja, Commission Executive Chairman Ulayat Umidiran says the system is designed to give Nigerians clearer insight into how federal appointments and recruitment are distributed, reinforcing the principle of fairness and national inclusion.
It has become increasingly essential that our processes reflect efficiency, openness, and accessibility to the Nigerian people whom we serve. The new official website stands as a strategic innovation designed to strengthen our institutional presence in the digital space. It provides a unified, accessible, and user-friendly platform.
Of this website represents a bold and a commendable step towards strengthening that mandate. It is not merely a digital upgrade, it is a strategic tool for institutional transformation. This platform provides a central hub for real-time information dissemination, enhance stakeholders' engagement.
Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, says the move is part of a broader commitment to institutional reforms aimed at promoting equity, accountability, and trust in public service administration.
For the work of the FCC must continually evolve to reflect the demands of our time and the evolution that may be dictated by technology, data, and citizen expectations for openness and transparency.
The initiative is not merely a technological upgrade. It is a bold statement of purpose, an affirmation that the Commission is poised to embrace the evolving demands of governance in the digital age. The Federal Character Commission, established to promote equity, fairness, and inclusiveness in the distribution of public opportunities and resources occupies a strategic position in fostering national unity.
The Commission believes that the increased transparency will not only strengthen public confidence, but also ensure that the federal character principle is more effectively implemented, reflecting Nigeria's diversity in governance and service delivery. Nigeria's women entrepreneurs are being positioned to tap into growing global trade opportunities as the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, NEPC, step up efforts to expand their participation in non-oil exports. Following Nigeria's record-breaking non-oil export performance in 2025, the Executive Director of the NEPC, Noye Ayeni, speaking at the Women Exporter Conference in Abuja, noted that women, who make up about 40% of small and medium enterprises, remain key players across the export value chain.
They are very significant, and they contribute significantly to economic development of this country. From agriculture to processing to trade to services, they are building businesses, creating value, and holding key positions across export chain.
Representing the Minister
is committed led enterprises can flourish. This includes expanding access to affordable financing, enhancing digital and financial literacy, and supporting innovation through targeted capacity building programs.
And this is why empowering women-led businesses is not charity, but is smart economics. So Nigeria cannot fully unlock its economic potential if the energy, intelligence, and enterprise of women remain under-supported.
Stakeholders emphasize that empowering women and strengthening MSMEs are critical to Nigeria's economic diversification, with record export figures already achieved. They noted that sustaining growth will depend on enterprise development, export expansion, and the increasing participation of women in business. Nigeria's Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dele Alake, says reform in the mining sector are beginning to deliver tangible outcomes, with government revenue rising significantly from 6 billion naira in 2022 to 26 billion naira in 2024. He also pointed to increased foreign investment inflows, the formalization of more than 300 artisanal miners cooperatives, and a 72.1% jump in revenue attributed to strengthened surveillance and enforcement across the sector. Alake disclosed this at a recently concluded African Commodities Conference, an exhibition held in Abuja, noting that ongoing reforms are positioning the sector for sustained growth and greater contribution to the economy.
Convener Michael Akweche emphasized the importance of stronger collaboration among stakeholders to drive sustainable growth. He also called for the integration of artisanal miners into the national mining framework.
So what we're trying to do is, number one, to expand the scope of the mining cooperatives to as much as 2,500 to 5,000. So that with the large number of people per local government, it will create more employment and job opportunities for especially the youths at the local government level.
The Minister of Solid Mineral Development, Dele Alake, in a message to the conference, reaffirmed the federal government's commitment to addressing existing bottlenecks and ensuring the full potential of the sector is realized.
We are determined to build a mining sector that is secure, investable, transparent, community conscious, and industrially relevant. A conference like this one matters because it creates something that no single institution can create alone. A shared professional space, a room where knowledge moves horizontally, where challenges are compared, where solutions that work in one community can travel to another.
The conference themed Empowering Mineral Engineers, Geologists, Mining Engineers, Artisanal Miners, and Small and Medium-Scale Miners brought together government officials, policymakers, industry stakeholders, and development partners.
And that's it on Kakaaki Business. Good morning.
Thank you, Larry, for that. Interesting enough, talking about businesses and countries. Of course, China has launched and flagged off the multi-million-dollar ECOWAS secretariat right here in, of course, in the FCT. And they've said that this is one of the zero tariff policy for African nations, which was set to begin on May 1st. This initiative, they say they have been working on for the past 70 years. And just interestingly, on Monday, Kenya also flagged off its first, export consignment under the zero policy tariff with China as well. Well, we've heard this before and we know what that means. More aid, more grants, more interventions in Africa. But what does it really mean for China? Now, going over to insecurity, the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps has stepped up actions to rescue some of the victims and people who, of course, were kidnapped after the brazen attack in the orphanage in Kogi State. They confirmed that 7 students and 2 matrons abducted from the Zariagi facility remain missing as authorities expand their search. Now, our heart goes out to the people of Kogi State as they continue to immensely search for these missing persons. Let's look at this report.
The victims were taken after suspected bandits attacked the Tajuddin Islamic Foundation and Children's Home alongside the Darukitab Islamic Training Center late on Sunday. The NSCDC commandant says additional personnel have now been deployed across strategic locations to strengthen surveillance and reinforce ongoing rescue operations.
We are on top of it, and the right thing is being done to make sure that all of them are recovered. So governor is not even, in fact, he did not sleep when he had to give all of us instruction with the Commissioner of Police, all on the spot.
As new projects were commissioned at the NSCDC headquarters in Lokoja, stakeholders call for stronger interagency cooperation to tackle worsening insecurity in the region.
We expect collaboration. We expect support from the government of Alhaji Ahmed Usman Ododo.
Because they are doing a serious work. When all of us are sleeping, they are out there chasing after the criminals.
The command says it broader community outreach include recent medical programs for vulnerable families, reflect its commitment not only to security, but also to humanitarian support across Kogi states.
For them to accept us, there's something that we need to give to them so that it's a way of building trust.
As they are taking it, they should going to give their husband peace at home. Even our husband, that is the officer, they'll be able to even carry that job well.
Tekuba Akaya, AIT News, Lokoja.
Well, we'll continue to really hope that those persons are found. And interestingly as well, the Kogi State Commandant of the NSCDC, Aletan Ebenezer, spoke while speaking in Lokoja, as you watch there, says that the residents, security forces are working together to ensure that these persons are found. But let's go over to another segment this morning, a special report I would rather call it, and it's talking about the mandate secretary for the health secretary, talking about the issue of over 4,000 vital loads of medications and vaccinations for HIV to be distributed. But again, the question is how many people can get access to this? What is the information around this? And that's why we're taking the special report.
Described the initiative as a major step in the fight against HIV. According to Fasawi, the introduction of LENPREM marked a shift in the prevention strategies, particularly for individuals who struggle with daily medication adherence.
In about 2 years' time, we will start to see how this has impacted on our figures and the population of people living with HIV. What we want is 0 new infections and continue to support those who are already infected.
She, however, noted that the new injection does not replace existing prevention methods.
And the general public too is hereby being sensitized that these medications are for free. Anyone who sells it to you is committing fraud. Primary, secondary, tertiary partners, it is for free.
It is not given as a vaccine for you to develop maybe some immunity against it. No, it is given as a prevention drug, and it's not given in isolation alone.
Available record indicates that the FCT currently has an HIV prevalence rate of about 1.4%, with more than 60,000 people on treatment, with prevention still remaining critical to sustaining progress. Dimas Nanzung, AIT News, Abuja.
Again, another country that is launching that ERP is Mozambique as well, which flagged off their ejectables on Monday. And people are saying perhaps they want to see what this really will do for their viral load, and for those who do not have it, what this does to prevent it. Now, let's look at another report. Of course, I don't know if you followed the bill that was sponsored by the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives and others, and amending the section 29, subsection 5 of the 2026 Constitution. Now, this is the act to expand, let me read it word for word, the jurisdiction for filing suits by aspirants challenging false information submitted by candidates, allowing such actions to be instituted either at a court in the Federal Capital Territory or the jurisdiction where the dispute arose. Now, of course, they've called it the Presidential Election Pre-Election Appeal, which will now commence at the Court of Appeal. Let's take a look.
A key amendment to the first bill in Section 29, subsection 8 of the 2026 Electoral Act now mandates candidates vying for elective positions to provide both physical and electronic contact details, including email addresses and phone numbers. The second bill, which amends Section 29(5), introduced a new Section 29A to clearly define jurisdiction in pre-election matters.
The bill also seeks to eliminate jurisdictional conflict by expressly providing for that no court shall entertain pre-election matters except as stipulated in this proposed section.
In his contribution, Abdulsamad Dasuki raised concerns over the possibility of electronic messages being diverted to spam folders, an argument that was dismissed by the House Deputy Speaker.
When you have the word shall in the law, we have to be mindful.
Yes.
That means it's mandatory. So paperwork, somebody acknowledges,
yes,
somebody receives, and you can hold somebody responsible. But here, nobody receives this email. Nobody receives these text messages.
Technology is trying to make life easier for us. As we said, we are not jettisoning the one that is there. We are not cancelling. We're only expanding it. I'll just put the question. Those in support of this motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Balogun Adebayo told his colleagues that the bill will help eliminate jurisdictional conflicts. Ugianawe Uduimo, AIT News, Abuja.
Well, the ayes have it and the nays didn't, regardless of that intervention. Well, the law will be the law, and it's the implementation thereof that people would hope to see, and that at the end of the day, it really resonates and is for the benefit of the people. Now we'll go straight to our social intervention segments coming up next.
9 years, including
to Get Fit in 60 Seconds with Jolly Phillips. Now, everyone has 60 seconds in every day to spare. So if you're ready, let's go! Well done! I hope you had a great workout. Anyway, what I need you to do is to follow us on Instagram at Alpha Fitness Studios and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Alpha Fitness Studios, for free workout videos, free dance videos, sales and promos, and make sure you join us at the gym, Alpha Fitness Studios in Lekki Phase 1 next time you're in Lagos. So until the next time, bye-bye!
Hello, great people of Nigeria. Welcome to the Leadership Clinic today. I'll be speaking on innovation and creativity, the foundation for progress. When was the last time you had a truly new idea? Not copying what somebody has already developed, but genuinely creating something that is new. The truth of the matter is that every time that you have an idea, that idea is a potential for anything possible. It's a potential for growth. It's a potential that can change your life completely. But it is how you are able to creatively develop that idea, allow that idea to go through an incubation process, so that that idea is cooked, well cooked. You have thought through the idea in such a way that that idea can become a product or a service ready to hit the marketplace. Because the moment it hits the marketplace, it becomes value. That is a product of creativity and innovation that we're talking to you about. So most of us have become so focused on efficiency that we have killed creativity. So we follow the same routine, saying this is how we have always done it. And no wonder we are always stuck. So what do we have to do differently? We have to begin to practice innovation. Let the spirit of innovation rest upon us. Let the spirit of innovation rest upon you. Innovation is what separates leaders who thrive from leaders who survive. Companies that don't innovate will surely die. Leaders who don't innovate, they get replaced. The world is moving in the 21st century with such a speed that if you don't know how to reinvent yourself daily with a touch of style and creativity, with making everything fresh and getting to a place of getting things done, how would you be able to build a culture of innovation that is critical? So how do you build a culture of innovation? How do you get it going? How do you make it work? First thing first you have to do is that you have to question everything, no assumption. Just because it works doesn't mean that it is the best way. So no assumption, you have to question everything. Ask why we do what we do this way. How could we even do it better? So if you have a bunch of people who think this way, and everybody in the team is always thinking, how do we make it happen differently? How do we go through this path differently? How do we create a new path where there is no path? You see? Then creativity comes alive. Second, we have to make space for experimentation. Innovation requires trying things that might fail. If you punish every failure, then what you do is that you kill creativity. That's why you allow people to explore possibilities. In every idea, there might be 10 possibilities, but it's your ability to be able to be patient enough to allow those ideas to flourish and develop some level of good that is important. And the third thing for me is learn from other industries. Some of the best ideas come from applying solutions from one field to another. The integration of different bodies of knowledge can bring us to the place of creativity and innovation. And the fourth thing is to listen to people's closest to the problem. So your frontline staff often have the best ideas if you would just ask them. The truth of the matter is that if you understand these dynamics I've shared with you and add the fifth one, allocate resources and time and budget and get the right people to the innovation room, get the right people in the office, people who have the capacity to utilize resources to the point of innovation. Guess what? Innovation cannot just happen. It won't just happen. Somebody has to make it happen. Let that person be you. Great people of Nigeria, you must remember, if a man doesn't have a purpose of waking up, sleeping becomes interesting.
Have you ever wondered why you should or should not reward your child or student for every chore completed? Now, some parents and teachers believe that a child or student that is rewarded for every chore would be hardworking, but let's weigh this assertion this way. What if you are unconsciously raising a child who cannot give selfless service? A child or student that feels that he or she deserves to be compensated for every work done. Now, here's what I think is a better way out. Why not explain to the child why he or she needs to take a certain chore seriously, the effect it would have on the environment, and how the world will positively perceive him or her as hardworking? What about rewarding the child or student once in a while? Not necessarily with gifts, but with words of encouragement, such as, "You're very hardworking," and a hardworking child or student will be a successful adult in the future. Rewarding a child or student for every chore carried out makes the child hold people to ransom with the mentality of no money, no work. But in school, Rewarding the child with medals or good appraisals before peers is also a very good way to encourage other students to improve. In the home, it's a little different because rewarding your child before siblings can cause unhealthy rivalry, so you need to be careful. Encourage teamwork, ensuring that all your children share in the chores and reward them collectively as a team. After all, together, everyone achieves more. Honestly, that's my 2 kobo.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live. The issues as they break. The multitude, the political figures, the state and non-state actors.
It's a serious threat to democracy. And our government seem to be incapable of protecting.
The scheming.
This is not a period we should say bow and go. Every part of this country is important.
The intrigues.
There can be no one person that is bigger than the party.
Deft moves and the momentous declaration.
We didn't get any protection. I'm not particularly against anybody.
We track and capture them all.
I don't believe in godfatherism in politics.
Follow in-depth analysis and no-holds-barred interviews.
Armed forces of the country is well capable. They need the political will.
Are they just waking up from sleep? Is there complacency?
Feel the pulse of happenings in the political arena on AIT Democracy Today. Widely acclaimed authority on politics. Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. Nigerian time. In the hallowed chambers where laws are forged and a nation's destiny is decided.
This is your parliamentary program, Inside the Parliament on AIT.
Voices rise, opinions clash, debates ignite.
We cannot be apologetic in the discharge of our constitutional duties as lawmakers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The burden of proving that the elections have been conducted peacefully and in accordance with law must shift to INEC.
From the Senate to the House of Representatives, this is where policies are tested, laws are crafted, and authority is held to account.
We spoke to some lawmakers on their opinions of the document presented by the President.
Every motion, every argument carries the hopes of millions.
We need more hospitals, more health clinics in communities so that they can effectively take care of the primary health need of our people.
The questions are tough. The exchanges are intense.
Mr. President, you can have your way, but I will have my say. You can use the gavel, and I will use my voice. And those who want the proviso are 55 in.
But who truly stands for the people? Who is driving the change that defines our tomorrow?
Let us tell ourselves the truth. Why are we here talking about LGBT, GTBT, whatever?
Get the answers on Where Nigeria Decides on Inside the Parliament on AIT every Tuesday, 4:30 p.m.
You're welcome to the newspaper review this morning, and I have the delight of having with me Chuks Akuna, who's going to be reviewing the newspaper with me. And interesting is his birthday today, isn't it?
Birthday boy.
Birthday boy, isn't it? From all of us, I have many, many returns to you.
Thank you very much.
All right, so let's get into it this morning. And of course, our online reviewers are also with us. So just join in as we just kick off this morning, starting with Daily Asset. APC adjust election timetable, opens form sales, win window, and that's what we see as the lead. The rider there talks about forms purchase end May 2nd, submission close May 4th, and that's what we see as a front page for the lead stories for Daily Asset. Bottom page, terrorists kill 19 residents in Benue. Katsina community is also running there as the first line story. The Guardian takes its lead there as well. APC risks internal crisis as governors hijack nomination forms, and that's on page 6, and that's what we find there, front page newspaper. And PRP faction rejects Abuja convention, alleges ADC's plot to hijack party, and that's coming to you, front page newspaper this morning on the front page of the Guardian. That's where we are now. We've moved from the Daily Asset. Now let's go over to the Observer's Times. Observer's Times is looking at Battle of the Carlos. Interesting one. Observer's Times says Battle of the Carlos. Leadership tussle tears Abia APC as Benjamin and Ojikalo trade claims. Battle of the Carlos. Leadership tussle tears Abia APC as Benjamin and Ojikalo trade claims. Deputy Speaker cites ranking protocol. Senator claims matching orders from Tinubu, and that's what we see as the rider story to that on Observer's Time. But you see also bottom page, Nigeria's public debt stock hits 159.28 trillion naira in fourth quarter 2025, coming from the NBS, and that's Observer's Time. Now, Daybreak is breaking this morning with 2027, and now they lead with 2027, Wike-backed PDP, ADC faction, LP resists unified opposition candidate, and that's all right. So we'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back. We'll continue in earnest. Stay with us.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live. The issues as they break. The multitude, the political figures, the state and non-state actors.
It's a serious threat to democracy. And our government seem to be incapable of protecting.
The scheming.
This is not a period we should sit back and go. Every part of this country is equal.
The intrigues.
There can be no one person that is bigger than the party.
Deft moves and the momentous declaration.
We didn't get any protection. I'm not particularly against anybody.
We track and capture them all.
I don't believe in godfatherism in politics.
Follow in-depth analysis and no-holds-barred interviews.
Armed forces of the country is well capable. They need the political will.
Are they just waking up from sleep? Is there complacency?
Feel the pulse of happenings in the political arena on AIT Democracy Today. Widely acclaimed authority on politics. Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. Nigerian time.
All right, thank you so much for us. And we want to get back to the papers of today, and we want to see the lead, I think, highlighting for us this morning. We want to comment from the Nigerian Pilot perspective. Nigerian Pilots just talked about its lead as Judgment Day, and Judgment Day is there. Supreme Court fixes today for judgment on ADC leadership dispute, and that's on page 8 of the Nigerian Pilot. You can see that story there. Again, you also want to look at Apex Court announced that judgment would be delivered by 2 p.m. on Thursday on page 8. Now, Blueprint newspaper is looking at Supreme Court rules on ADC tussle today. Federal High Court nullifies parties' Congress's convention. 31 days to end of primaries. Says Mark-led interim ESCO illegal. Kachuku hails Verdict, and that's the rider to that story. Plateau, Tinubu approves 2 billion naira for victims of Angwan Rukuba killing, and that's the rider to that story. Now, the Authority newspaper is looking at the Supreme Court verdict as well. Say Supreme Court delivers judgment in ADC PDP leadership disputes today as High Court nullifies Mark's ADC congresses. You would also want to find above that masthead NMDPRA boss sacked, Rabiu Umaru nominated as replacement, and that's on page 11, as well as Bianco Juku appointed as Foreign Affairs Minister on bottom page, on page 10 story of the Authority. This Nigeria is still running with the ADC story there. It says ADC worsens court, nullifies Mark-led congresses, anxiety. Supreme Court gives judgment today in ADC PDP leadership tussle, and that's what we find on the front page of this Nigeria. Police dismiss ASP, 5 others over killing of handcuffed man in Efurum, and that's bottom page story. Now let's go over to the Daily Monitor this morning. Tension as Supreme Court delivers judgment today to also give verdict in appeals seeking to validate Ibadan PDP National Convention, and that is the Daily Monitor's lead. Bottom page, Nigeria will continue to borrow when necessary, and that's coming from the president on the bottom page story. The New Telegraph is also looking at High Court bars INEC from recognizing ADC congresses. We are reviewing Abuja court judgment. Party, that's what they say, 2027 election won't hold without ADC on the ballot. Nwosu speaks there on that riding story. We also want to look at xenophobic tensions protect Nigerians in SA. Federal government tells Ramaphosa on page 2, bottom page. Now, Nigerian News Direct, however, brings you the Supreme Court story as well. So a lot of papers will be leading with the story. Of course, the cases today say Supreme Court to deliver judgment on APC PDP leadership crisis today, and that is the lead story, front page, Nigerian News Direct, and that is also what you find there. Oshun 2026, Oye Bamiji will win elections before 10 p.m. on August 15, DG boasts. Daily Trust goes to ADC, Supreme Court in Make Omar judgment, and that is what you find as lead. Enemies trying to use insecurity to get rid of me, and that's coming from the president on bottom page of page 7 of the Daily Trust. And then also you look at the story coming from Al Jazeera, Nigeria, Judgment Day, as Supreme Court decides on ADC PDP leadership tussle today. Verdict expected on the recognition of Mark-led ADC leadership and PDP Ibadan Convention. Daily Global, as we move there, looks at, well, another way of putting the Daily Trust story. Enemies exploiting insecurity to oust me won't succeed, and that's Tinubu speaking on the front page. Says enemies exploiting insecurity to oust me won't succeed. Tinubu, that's coming from the president. You also want to now look at the Daily Sun newspaper. Rising with that is still the enemies want to use insecurity to oust me story, coming from the president. Prides himself as stubborn politicians. Tinubu, enemies want to use insecurity to oust me. He prides himself as stubborn politicians, and that's on page 6, coming from the Daily Sun newspaper. Still, the story on ADC is just right opposite the masthead of the Daily Sun newspaper. ADC knows fate today as Supreme Court rules on leadership crisis. Yes, this morning, The Guardian looks at article Tinubu trade blame as U.S. moves to tighten excuse me, oversight on Nigeria. That's what we find there. Now, let's also look at all right, so let's look at another paper right now. Standard Times is also Daily Asset, rather. Tinubu names Bianca Odumegwu Ojukwu, Foreign Affairs Minister, nominates Shola Enikanoleye as Minister of State. President Oke's land allocation for ambassadors designate in Abuja, and that's on page 2. And you also want to look at Standard Times. Tinubu appoints Bianca as Foreign Affairs Minister, and that's the lead story for Standard Times. And leadership now leads away with Tinubu fires MDPRA CEO after just 4 months in office, and that's on page 4 of the leadership. And the business Nigeria growth run ends as economy slows after 16 months of expansion, and that's the lead story there. And Observer's Times looks at the lead here. However, today's lead as police killed my 2 sons. Mother of slain Delta musician cries out. Police killed my 2 sons. Mother of slain Delta musician cries out. Bereaved woman reveals 2022 tragedy as she loses second child. OG Milan to police bullet. And that's on page 1 of the Observer's Time. Fortunately there, you might want to look at other stories on the front page of the Observer's Times right there on the page. Now let's look at some talking points this morning, and we'll begin with Judgment Day. To make or to break jokes. A lot of papers are looking at that Judgment Day story. Pilot Blueprint Authority, Daily Monitor, Nigeria, Al Jazeera, across board. Of course, the judgment is today.
Yes. And when you say Judgment Day, you actually mean Judgment Day. And it's these are the 2 strongest opposition parties, as it were, today. The PDP and the ADC. And, you know, sometimes people think that, you know, that time passed, people said that the courts had no powers over the internal affairs of a political party. But, you know, every rule they say has an exception. And there's nothing on earth that the court has no jurisdiction over, to start with. Because if you say the courts have no powers over political parties, then you ask yourself certain questions. One, these political parties, they have their own constitution. And then if without laws that regulate our conduct, what you have is anomy. Because you say that it's the parties that can nominate candidates, or that can nominate, or that can elect the officers. Yes. But then it means that if you have a political party, 10 people could come and claim that they are national chairman or state chairman, or, you know, or exco, since in your opinion the courts do not have a say over that. That's why you have the Electoral Act that regulates the conduct of parties. You have the Constitution. Then you have the parties' laws. Because you do not say because the courts cannot tell us who to nominate as candidate. And this has been a recurring decimal from 1983. It's been a problem up to Supreme Court. You know, you bring 2 people can claim that they were validly nominated, depending on how you state. So you can't they can't go to National Assembly, you know, and say they will be sworn in. If we saw what happened in Rivers State in 2007, when Amechi won the primaries of the PDP, he got the ticket of the PDP to run for the governorship. But then the powers that be stopped him. Omeha was nominated instead, and the matter got up to the Supreme Court, and the court said no, that the victory belonged to the party. Of course, that has since become controversial. But like we said, you know, it's not over until it's over. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure before 4 p.m. today, you know, members of the ADC and their supporters, and members of the PDP and their supporters, and of course, general public will have known the outcome, you know, or what or how the learned justice of Supreme Court stand on this matter.
One of the papers also said that, you know, talked about the right where also said that there won't be any elections if ADC is not on the ballot. I mean, what does this mean for ADC as a party?
No, which of the Moses?
Of course, the former party chairman.
Say former. You understand? There are about 19 political parties. I think there are about 19 registered political parties. You know, you can boycott elections, you know, but to say that elections will not hold, I mean, I think it's a joke carried too far. You know, even the crisis in ADC was caused, in my opinion, by Nwosu. And I think I said it elsewhere. I interviewed Nwosu in 2002, 2003. In fact, it was an interview I had for Nwosu that made ABGA expel him as a member of because even while I was interviewing him, I told him, I said, I wouldn't want to run this interview, but if I ran the interview, that you most likely be expelled. And he said he knew that he was aware that they would expel him and that it didn't matter. And of course, the very day the interview ran in this day, he was expelled because at the time, Peter Obi had donated 10 million naira to APGA. APGA was in dire straits, and Peter Obi donated 10 million naira to APGA. And that was the highest sum APGA had at the time. And APGA handed the party ticket to, Gobaka ticket to Ojukwu, and almost protested that he want to go to a fair contest, that if he squares up against Peter Obi and lost, he will go home and lick his wounds. But for him to stay as the convener of the party in Anambra and just, be told to go home, that somebody had picked the ticket without a contest. So, and then since that time, we also have been national chairman of ADC for about 20 years. So these are some of the issues, because you see, people just come and talk about democracy, because democracy has to start from the roots. If you don't have internal democracy, because imagine if someone like Nwosu had run his term and his term lapsed and he left and somebody else came, all these issues we're talking about today wouldn't happen. So I think it's a huge joke for people like Nwosu to talk about that, saying that, claiming that, or threatening that elections will not hold if ADC that some people already sold, because we are aware that some people paid for that ADC. I'm a journalist, I have my facts. If they think it's a lie, they just sue me. People paid for ADC because David Mark was in PDP. The secretary of the faction of ADC was in APC. So suddenly, overnight, in one day, just overnight, they became national leaders of the party. Where does that happen? And I keep saying it, that's why even for people who want to, estate developers or people who want to buy houses, they prefer to buy the house as carcass. They want to see the kind of cement, the texture of the block work, because if a house is painted and screed and it's screed and done, you wouldn't know if it was built of straw. So people say, I want to see the carcass as it is. I want to see the casting. I want to see the beams. I want to test the concrete before I pay. So, but you left PDP today. This morning you were in PDP. The following day you became national chairman. Where does that happen? That's the truth.
All right, let's look at Daily Global. Daily Sun, The Guardian is running with this next story, talking about enemies exploiting insecurity to oust me won't succeed. One of the papers said, you can't get me. I'm a very stubborn politician. But let's look at this lead. Chuks, we talked about this a little just backstage before we came on air. How are you looking at this? Because people are saying it seems as if insecurity is getting worse. It's escalating in some parts, and then the military is winning in some. But there is still that tragic increase in certain areas.
Yes, they say the witch cries at night and the child dies in the morning. Look at when Tinubu, after about 37 years, the British government, the head of state invites Nigeria's president to come for a state visit after like 37 years. And on the eve of the departure of the president, an explosion occurs in Borno State. And I was telling you backstage that for about a year or more, we appear to have won the war, the battle, against insurgency in the northeast. Then suddenly from nowhere, every day now, we regale with stories of, explosions, attacks, northeast. On Sunday, 29 persons were killed in Adamawa State, a place that had not known violence for a very, very long time. And, I listened to the president's speech about when he met platoon leaders. He said something. He said, he also challenged leaders. He said that leaders must learn to take charge. And I'm sure it was a veiled reference to Governor Mufwang, that because you cannot claim to be a chief executive of a state, you understand, and every day you keep running to Abuja for intervention. It happened at the time of Darie, when the killings became too much. And as exasperated, Obasanjo had to declare a state of emergency, sent the military there, and after 6 months, Darie returned. So I think the president didn't mince what he said, that they should look themselves in the eye and tell themselves the truth. Leaders must learn to take charge. People also must learn to accommodate. He said two things, about leaders taking charge and about people accommodating. And I know, I don't need to come and say that there. We all know, we all should understand what the president means by, people accommodating each other. Because I think he's talking about those who have lived. I'm from Abaga in Anambra State. And I'm sure if you want to trace my history to about 500 years, you wouldn't be able to, because there are no written records. We're all created, from Garden of Eden. People moved from point A to point B, you understand? Today we have Falashas, who are Jews. We have Jews in Ethiopia, we have Jews in Poland, we have Jews everywhere. So people migrate and settle in some places. So I think what the president was saying is that people should also learn to accommodate those who have lived with them for hundreds, or maybe 1,000 years. And he was also, challenging his political opponents. He was throwing innuendos at his political opponents. This has been tried before. Apparently, he was referring to former President Goodluck. Because they used insecurity to ground him. If you recall, at the time, he said that time, he said that they want to scare me, no way. Yesterday he said, and on Tuesday night, he said that he's a very stubborn person. So apparently he's sending the message to the opposition that if you think that, throwing bombs, using people to throw bombs to kill people would scare him from, seeking reaction, that you're lying, that he's going to be on the ballot box, and his usual Emilio Con slogan that he will win.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's take some few comments from our online viewers. I mean, it says, this is MDB 2068, says, article on ADC chieftains met yesterday at their chairman's house, distinguished Senator Mark, and Supreme Court judgment on ADCs today. This is not coincidence. They may have known already that what the outcome is. Another person said, well, Mark and Turaki can't pretend not to know what will be the outcome of the Supreme Court judgment on their cases today. They will lose their cases, and that's from Omo Ario 01. And you also have somebody says, happy birthday, Chooks. Okay. Maria says, happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
And OJ Pezier 8612 says, enemy is a vague noun. Who is or are the enemies? Using insecurity against you. People should just be responsible. And another person said, the APC government is doing everything possible to destabilize the opposition parties in contesting against Tinubu. The opposition parties themselves are not helping matters falling in the APC, in the trap of APC, and that's coming from Victor Ihemba. I mean, someone says enemy is a vague noun. Who is or are the enemies?
No, when you say enemies, it's very clear. He said, his enemies. And who are his enemies? Those who actually want to seize power from him, or wrest power from, not seize, wrest power from him. That's it. And, the truth is this, let's not pretend. Nobody, okay, let me use Bayelsa for instance. When Senator Diri and now Senator Lawrence Eljapo of blessed memory, when they ran against David Lyon, when they ran against APC, then you wouldn't, if had Governor Diri now and his lead deputy, gone to APC to say, no, David Lyon, your deputy's credentials are tainted. Let him fix it. Will Diri be governor today? Of course, no. Nobody hands his opponents. Even in the game of, I'm a very ardent tennis player. Ping pong and tennis. You don't, even in football, you allow nobody wants his opponent, let me not use enemy, to win. You go to World Cup, you use every move to your advantage. That's life. If all the cars in the world knew what Toyota knows, then Toyota will not be the largest and most successful car company in the world. That's the truth. That's why you have what they call trade secrets. If Pepsi knew what Coca-Cola is made of, Coca-Cola will not be the most successful beverage on earth. That's the truth. There's nobody on earth who, Tinubu is not expected to go and empower his political opponents. I'll give us an example. There's this is now late, a police officer. He told me that when he was his boss, he will tell his boss that these people are complaining, that they say you're not empowering them. He said, okay, don't worry. He said, you're very stupid. When you become IG tomorrow, empower your deputies so that they come and take over your office. That's the truth. There's nobody, we have children. There's nobody who has gone to a speech and prize giving day who does not want his child to come first. I mean, let's face it. We want all other children to be slaves to our children. That's the truth. You call that selfishness, but that's true. Everybody wants to, his own child, his own thing, his own house, his own wife, everything to be the best. That's the truth. Nobody, love your neighbor as yourself. Nobody has ever loved his neighbor more than himself. That's the truth. So, people who blame Tinubu, I laugh at them because Tinubu is not supposed to come and tell them, that, okay, no, there's a pitfall here. Even in warfare, that's why you have military intelligence. You see soldiers who are military officers, they wear mufti. They go into the enemy camp, they get information, they come out and tell them that this will happen, That's the truth. So people blaming Tinubu, I think they're just being unfair, even to themselves, because even themselves, nobody wants somebody to best him, to best his record. Everybody wants to be the best in what they do. So if Tinubu, okay, imagine in 2023, look at the obstacles that were strewn on the path of Tinubu. You think Tinubu, and he said it, we all knew, people like me, I didn't give Tinubu any chance because of what people in Buhari's camp, the plot. But he was able to, nobody goes to say, my father died when I was a child. I've seen orphans who have become presidents. What's his name? Bill Clinton. He never knew his dad. That didn't stop him from becoming president of America, the most powerful nation on earth.
All right, let's look at our other stories just before we take a rain check here. Tinubu names Bianca Odumegwu-Ojukwu Foreign Affairs Minister. Daily Asset Standard Times ran with that. We also see another story. Nigeria's growth run ends as economy slows after 16 months of expansion coming on business energy. So these are two leads that we probably need to touch on. And maybe the police dismissing the ASP, others for the killing of that child. But the naming
of Bianca, fantastic. I think it's a master stroke. Imagine when President Tinubu nominated Bianca Ojukwu to become for ministerial appointment. People like most of us, we hailed it because, it was a master stroke. So for those who claim that, who see Tinubu as an Igbo hater, as this, as that, this is the widow of ex-Biafran warlord. She's now the face of Nigeria, whether I would like it or not. And I must say this without fear of contradiction, that Bianca Odumegwu-Ojukwu had, as Minister of State, discharged herself very, very creditably. And, it's not unexpected. We spoke about her background, aristocratic background. For those who don't know, her father was the governor of the old Anambra State, CCO, not Chief CCO, chieftain of the MPN. And she had a very privileged background, if you ask me, Ajebota, if you asked me. And she was at the time, the most beautiful girl in Nigeria. She has carried herself with so much poise. She carried herself with so much grace. And there's nowhere Bianca has gone, to represent Nigeria that people don't, roll out red carpets for her. So it's a very good one, not just for the people of the Southeast, but for Nigeria, because, when you see, she has a name. Bianca, before she became minister, she already had a name, she had an address. So for Tinubu to have elevated her to the position of minister of, full-fledged minister of foreign affairs, representing Nigeria all over the world, it shows the explicit confidence, he has in
capacity.
In her capacity to deliver.
All right, thank you so much, Chooks, and let's leave you to run along and spend your birthday in glory and have fun.
Thank you very much.
From all of us here, we wish you all the best and many returns. Thank you. Do have a lovely day.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, our first interview will begin in earnest. We'll be talking about the World Malaria Day first, and then go into other matters, but we'll take a quick break. Stay with us.
The stories now break online. Don't miss miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content, follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live. The issues as they break. The multitude, the political figures, the state and non-state actors.
It's a serious threat to democracy. And our governments seem to be incapable of protecting.
The scheming.
This is not a period we should sit back and go. Every part of this country is equal.
The intrigues.
There can be no one person that is bigger than the party.
Deft moves and the momentous declaration.
We didn't get any protection. I'm not particularly against anybody.
We track and capture them all.
I don't believe we go for that reason in politics.
Follow in-depth analysis and no-holds-barred interviews.
Armed forces of the country is well capable. They need the political will.
Are they just waking up from sleep? Is there complacency?
Feel the pulse of happenings in the political arena on AIT Democracy Today. Widely acclaimed authority on politics. Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. Nigerian time.
Back here, we'll be talking World Malaria Day, and that is, of course, observed on April 25th. It fell on a weekend, but we still have to do a due diligence and also make sure that we commemorate the day. This year's theme, driven to end malaria. Now we can, now we must, is both a message of hope and one of call to action, urgent action for that matter. But it's not for us to tell us how hopeful we can be. We do have our guest in the studio to give us an insight on what this truly means. We have Chuks Alu, Monitoring and Evaluation Officer, FCT Malaria Elimination Program, with us here in the studio. You're welcome to the show. It's good to have you. And we also have Dr. Olutomi Shodikbo, State Program Manager, Seasonal Malaria Chemo Prevention at Malaria Consortium, right here. You can see on your screen. Very beautiful. Good to have you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Great
Thank you
to have
for having me.
All right, should I say Happy World Malaria Day, or World Malaria Day is here again, you know? And I think I'll start with you, because when we started our introduction this morning, we talked about how Nigeria still carries a significant share of the global malaria burden. What does the current situation look like for Nigeria at the moment?
Okay, thank you for having me. So World Malaria Day is a day to commemorate the efforts that we have all put in, the government, partners, and the community towards the fight against malaria. As we know, malaria is a preventable, curable, and treatable disease. However, we still bear a huge burden, sub-Saharan Africa, and especially Nigeria. In 2024, that's according to the World Malaria Report, Nigeria accounts for about 24% of global cases, malaria cases alone, and about 30% of global malaria deaths. And if we're talking about deaths in children under 5, Nigeria accounts for over 35% of this burden. So we see that Nigeria is in the forefront in the burden of malaria. So it is very important and vital that the interventions that are currently in place continue to be scaled up.
All right. Now, talking about scale, and before we get to scale, because, you know, I asked you a question, my question was, where are we now with the situation with malaria, considering the fact that it bears a significant burden? Because, you know, year in, year out, we still had the commemoration last year. We still talked about, you know, rising cases. Are there any, you know, optics to show that something is really being done, and where? Because, again, is it more in the communities at the local level, or is it at the suburban level?
Thank you for that question. Malaria affects everyone. Urban level, rural level, everyone. Every one of us, I'm sure even yourself, has come down with malaria or knows someone who has come down with malaria. The burden is so high that it can kill children. But despite this, there are several interventions that have taken place. In Malaria Consortium, for example, we support the government in the FCT, for example, to roll out seasonal malaria chemo prevention. And that is giving anti-malaria medications to children aged 3 to 59 months of age to prevent the occurrence of malaria. It reduces the episodes, it also reduces the severity of malaria. We do that across the 6 area councils in the FCT. Another intervention which we hope to roll out is the distribution of insecticide-treated nets in the FCT. Across other states, we have what we know as perennial malaria chemo prevention. There's also the malaria vaccine that has been introduced in Kebbi and Bayelsa, and also now in Bauchi and Ondo. There are so many interventions, the testing and treatment, free testing and treatment services in public health facilities in the FCT. And it's across the country and even across the world. So we are scaling up. For scaling up, the nets are better now. They're able to fight the mosquitoes now. They are new and improved. The vaccines too are also new and improved. And there is much more research and development, towards ensuring that we fight this parasite. So we're really doing a lot towards curbing malaria.
All right, talking about the FCT, let me come to Chuks. You're the Monitoring and Evaluation Officer for the FCT Malaria Elimination Program. She's talked about, the kind of, perhaps the optics on the fight against malaria and those who can contract and not contract. I mean, it's for everybody. But in talking about populations that are more vulnerable, let's look at that. I know everybody gets malaria, but what is the population that is most vulnerable to malaria, and why has it remained persistent despite the ongoing efforts?
Okay. Efforts have been made, and they have actually yielded some kind of results. For instance, FCT was at a prevalence rate of 18.8%, but currently is at 7.9%. That's after the National Malaria Indicator Survey that was conducted last year. And now to your question. The most vulnerable group are women and children. And, children, because their immunity is still not very quite strong. And then for pregnant women, especially women in their first pregnancy, this is because the parasite can hide in their placenta without being noticed. And then it can affect both the mother and the unborn child. So efforts so far made by partners, the government, community, and everyone is yielding results that are tilting to ending malaria in the shortest possible time.
All right. And when we are looking at this year's theme, Dr. Shodipo, it suggests urgency, suggests a now thing. In terms of possibility ahead, the progress that you were able to make with these kind of things, what kind of collaborations are you looking at?
Okay, thank you for that. The kinds of collaborations we are looking at first have to do with, we are looking for more national ownership, more strategic direction, a lot more political will and commitment on the part of the government, because it's the government that provides us an enabling environment to be able to fight this fight. We're also looking for sustained and continued collaboration with partners, donors, funders, implementers. And this support needs to be consistent, because if it is fragmented, then the gains that we have recorded will be lost. For communities as well, we're looking for communities that will be change agents. We're looking for community members that will lead locally driven solutions. So it concerns each and every one of us. We are looking for collaborations across board, because if each and every one of us say that, we have a part to play in fighting malaria, we will do simple things like ensuring our environments are clean. Simple things like ensuring we sleep inside an insecticide-treated net every night. Simple things like ensuring we go to tests to be sure that it's malaria and completing our medication. All these things, if we come together, we'll be able to drive malaria out.
Okay, and you know why I'm asking this is because of the ongoing efforts, even with international organizations, because I know that on the 24th, WHO approved the first malaria treatment developed exclusively for newborns and young infants. And we know that oftentimes when you go to antenatal and, new moms, they always complain about jaundice when they have their children. And at that age, young babies are not often exposed to malaria drugs. They take them out in the sun, the traditional method, of trying to curb malaria at that very early age. So research and medical pharmaceutical collaboration. I know Novartis was responsible for this with Afric Farm Consortium for this particular medication. For Nigeria, how important is research? Because just beyond the collaboration, how do we look inwards to begin to also look at that as a priority?
Research is very important. Research and development. It's because of research and development that is why we have the newly improved insecticide-treated nets. The nets we used to have before, at a point in time, were not able to fight the mosquito. But because of research and development, we have a newly improved insecticide-treated net. And that has already being distributed across African countries, and it's the kind of net the national working with partners to ensure Nigerians get. Research and development has led to the introduction of malaria vaccines for children. Without that, there won't have been malaria vaccines. And malaria vaccines should not be used in isolation, but be used in addition to other interventions, like I had mentioned previously. So Nigeria is at the forefront, of ensuring that interventions are tailored to specific contexts. We have what we know is called as subnational tailoring, and it's because of research and development. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, but because of research and development, we know that because of this epidemiological context, because of the unique nature of a particular environment, the interventions that get to that environment are specific for that environment. So Nigeria is also at the forefront of research and development.
Okay, so talking about environment, major challenges. When you're working within the FCT, I'm sure you meet community leaders, you engage actively. What has been some of the major challenges? I do not know if you face misconceptions issues, access issues, or even funding gaps during the work.
FCT, just like every other state and community, has its own unique challenges. And a lot of the population up to now still don't know the real causes of malaria. So that brings the issue of misconception, because to some of them, they think it's still something that comes when you walk under the sunlight. And then to some of them, it is something that they feel it's their enemy that is casting on them, like witchcraft and the rest of them. But we know that a mosquito can only happen when there is a bite from an infected female Anopheles mosquito. And it is not all mosquito that transmits malaria. It is the female Anopheles mosquito. And that mosquito has to be infested before it transmits it. This means that it gets it from an infected person and transmits to another. And so if we keep our environment clean, avoid stagnant water, dump sites, and anything that will aid the breed of mosquito, we will have a reduction in these parasites. But then, even the water we keep within our house, breathing side for mosquito, so that we're not just looking at the gutter, but we're also looking at that water we have kept in the bucket maybe in our bathroom, and we are not using, but we also failed to cover it. It can breed there, and then mosquitoes will emerge from there.
Interesting you say is I know it's only the female Anopheles mosquito, but we must kill all mosquitoes that we see because we don't know which one is male or female as they are flying by regardless. All right, let me come back to you, Dr. Tommy. I know that for the past 23 years, Malaria Consortium has been doing a lot of work in trying to eradicate malaria. Even in commemoration this year, the federal government rolled out what it called the new 5-year strategic plan, 2026 to 2030, as part of their strategic adventure to have proactive measures to further scale up, curbing malaria. But for Malaria Consortium, what has been the key achievements in these past 23 years? I know you've mentioned quite a few of them, but could you highlight them for us? And how do you hope to tie that in with the federal government just announcing these strategic, partnerships open and building on what you have done?
Okay. Like you rightly said, Malaria Consortium has been supporting the country for the past 23 years. And we have done that across various disease entities, malaria being one of them. But it's not only malaria that we work on. We also work on other disease and health conditions, malnutrition, pneumonia, and these are top killers of children. We have been at the forefront of health system strengthening, research, and that you had mentioned. Research, we are top implementing partners and top a research institution. Also capacity building. We work to improve the state of health of this country. Some of the interventions we have worked on include seasonal malaria chemoprevention, which is currently in 20 states plus the FCT. And Nigeria looks at or takes care of over 28 million children per cycle, and we have 4 to 5 cycles in a year. So that is a very huge amount. We have also supported in the distribution of nets. We have supported in the mass distribution of azithromycin to children. We have also been supporting the newly introduced malaria vaccine. Also in advocacy, communication, and social mobilization, and a lot more. We do a lot of monitoring and evaluation of interventions, and we ensure that the research that we carry out is tailored to communities and not just generic interventions, but interventions that will improve the lives of the community in Nigeria.
All right, so what is seasonal malaria chemoprevention? Can you explain that to us? And, I know that also from what we have seen, read, and also experienced, that it has gained attention.
Yes, it has.
On how it works. But tell us what it is and if it also has had any impact on children.
Okay. Seasonal malaria chemoprevention is a World Health Organization approved intervention. The WHO approved it in 2012, and Nigeria piloted it in 2013. So we've started that since 2013, and now we are across 20 states plus the FCT. It's an intervention where there's the intermittent administration of a full course of anti-malarial medication to prevent malaria in children aged between 3 to 59 months of age. And these children need to be healthy children. The anti-malaria medication that we provide is sulfadoxine pyrimethamine plus amodiaquine. We popularly call it SPAC. So we give this medication during the rainy season, and we know that the rainy season usually coincides with high malaria transmission. So we give it over 3 days, day 1, 2, 3, between June and October. That's for the FCT, that's 5 cycles. And in some other states for 4 months. But it coincides with the rainy season where the transmission of malaria is high. SMC, as we popularly call it, has been found to reduce the episodes of malaria that children have, as well as the severity of malaria. We are not saying that if your child takes the full course of SMC, the child will not come down with malaria. No, that's not what we're saying. We are saying that it can reduce the episodes of malaria. So yes, your child may not even come down with malaria, because we have had cases where caregivers have reported that, oh, they did not have to take their children to the health facility. Their children did not come down with fever. So it had actually prevented their children from coming down with malaria. Even those who come down with malaria, the severity is reduced, by about 75%, because we know that severe cases of malaria can lead to anemia. And you see cases of children going to the hospital where they need blood transfusion, and some even die. So SMC has been found to reduce the cases, the frequency, and even the severity, reduce anemia, and also reduce deaths in children. All this translates to, children being able to go to school, they don't miss school, parents not having to pay out of pocket for admissions or treatment, and leading to an overall improvement in the economy. This year for SMC, we aim to target over 1 million children aged between 3 to 59 months of age across the 6 area councils in the FCT. So SMC helps to reduce the burden of malaria in children.
All right, thank you so much for that, because, I'm taking this question from the fact that I know that the 27th ordinary session of the West African health ministers, just held, and one of the things they talked about was eliminating malaria, especially from within children under the age of 5, which has the highest burden on that. Now, let me come back to you, Chuks. You do a lot of work with communities and caregivers. What kind of role could be stronger? What stronger role can they play in terms of the work that you do? What kind of messaging can be out there? And what do you recommend in terms of collaboration between, community leaders and the community participants themselves?
Okay. The community so far has been quite cooperative, and then the community leaders as well has also started to gain ownership of the community struggle, where they need to take messaging very seriously. And some of the messages we need to tell them is that prevention is better than cure, or cheaper in some cases, so they don't have to wait until they have malaria. They could take advantage of the preventive measures like the SMC that Dr. Tommy has talked about, and then sleep inside a long-lasting insecticide-treated net every night, as well as keeping their environment clean. They should also encourage pregnant women to register early for antenatal and take advantage of the intermittent preventive treatment in pregnancy. That's the use of sulfadiazine pyrimethamine, and this is usually at the 3rd trimester of the pregnancy from the 13th week. And this SP can be taken monthly until delivery, but they should take at least 3 doses before delivery. And so everyone has a role to play, the community and individuals. But what we want from them is to begin to take responsibility and ownership of some of these interventions.
All right, so what about climate-driven spike, for malaria? Because again, when the rainy season comes, as she says, some areas are prone to floods, some areas are prone to movement of persons within that. How do you start early, advocacy, sensitization before that season? Because a lot of people may not also know that season, when climate drives, the windfalls and the rains, it also increases the spike of malaria. How do you also, make sure that that's an advocacy that you embark on?
Okay, so it is taking the message to the community level that mosquitoes breed in waterlogged areas, and so they should not allow water to accumulate within their environment. they should allow the drainages to be free so that water can easily flow, and ensure that there are no stagnant water within their community. So this is a role that the advocacy, communication, and social mobilization has been playing, and that effort is on in FCT. So they are ensuring that people begins to get the right message in concerning malaria, and then make efforts to ensure that their environment is clean.
Okay. Now, just before we go, let me come back to you, Doc. I don't know, maybe this question, I'm sure you've gotten it a lot of times, because I know that I was at a small conference in the Southern African Community Development talking about health in South Africa, and they were talking about mosquitoes have become more resistant to anti-malarial medicine. And so they're becoming scared because some parts of South Africa are now more prone to malaria than others, because those areas seem to have a lot of resistance to the anti-malarial drugs that are being done. How do we look at that as a threat? You know, when mosquitoes begin to evade detection and, you know, perhaps choose the medicines they respond to. Is this something that you're worried about? And is there a room for perhaps a review of that as well?
Yes, we have what is known as resistance to anti-malarial medications, but that has been confirmed. That's artemisinin resistance has been confirmed in 4 African countries, and there is suspected artemisinin resistance partial in also 4 other African countries. When we look at the concept of resistance to anti-malaria medications, it's a combination of certain factors. Yes, there's the part of the biological mutation of the parasite. It's on one hand. We also have the part where individuals play with regards to not going for a test and assuming that all fever is malaria. Not all fever cases are malaria cases. So you find out that people walk to a pharmacy and request for anti-malaria medication. That's on one hand. When they even request for that, they do not even complete the dose.
I see.
So you are creating a system for the parasite to be used to a particular kind of dosage. And then when you truly have malaria and you need it to work, it does not work. Another factor that plays out is the use of monotherapy. We use the combination therapy, artemisinin combination therapy, but you still find out that people use one kind of medication to treat malaria, and that is wrong. So and then there's also the case of substandard. It's a combination. Okay. We have artemisinin lumefantrine, for example. It's a combination therapy. So you now find out some people use only one of it, maybe artesunate alone. Okay. We also have the case of substandard medication. So some of these medication have not passed through NAFDAC approval, and you find them, people take them. So it's a combination of so many things. Some of the health facilities you don't find medication, but in the FCT there is medication and there is testing, which is free in public health facilities. So yes, resistance to anti-malaria medications is a threat, and if we all don't come together to play our part, it will get to a point where we hope it doesn't get to that point where, like you said, we have malaria and we don't have medications to treat that. But that is why there's a lot of funding and research going on to find out what new medications can we use. Because as we are working, the parasites are also working themselves to see how they can evade what we do. So it is, the onus lies on all of us, you know, to continue to play our part. Research and development is still going on to find out how we can curb resistance to anti-malaria medication. So that's also the front burner for Nigeria as well.
Indeed, and it's interesting you're saying this because, you know, there's been this call for herbal, you know, medication to look at reviewing it, you know, working together with the scientific approach and seeing how that, you know, but I must say thank you for joining me. I think I'm top of the hours because we're going to Kakaaki socials now, but we've been talking about driven to end malaria. Now we can, now we must, and I'm sure they've been able to prove their message of hope this morning. I think I have some hope, and I just know that, you know, female anopheles, I don't know why it's female though. That gives malaria, haba. But whatever it takes, it's a joint effort from the government. Malaria Consortium calls for partnership, and we must do our own to keep our environments clean. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Thank you. And I've been speaking to Chuk Salu, Monitoring and Evaluation Officer, FCT Malaria Elimination Program, and Dr. Lutomi Shodipo, State Program Manager, Seasonal Malaria Chemo Prevention at Malaria Consortium. They've been our guests this morning. Well, a quick break now, and we'll bring you Kakaaki socials in a moment.
Gender Agenda is where policy meets people. It's a bold policy literacy platform bridging the gap between decision makers and women across every sector. From parliament to politics, from leadership to governance, from peace to economy, development, human rights, from Nigeria to the rest of Africa, Gender Agenda amplifies voices too often excluded, ensuring every voice counts. Through compelling storytelling, social impact dialogue, thought-provoking documentaries, town halls that lean on data and research, we raise the bar. Gender Agenda, every Friday, 4:30 p.m. on AIT and on AIT's YouTube channel live.
My name is Adora Sydney Jack, and this is Gender Agenda.
Gender Agenda. Women rising.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT. On air, online, on live.
The issues as they break. The multitude, the political figures, the state and non-state actors.
It's a serious threat to democracy.
And our government seem to be incapable of protecting the scheming.
This is not a period we should say bow and go.
Every part of this country is equal.
The intrigues.
There can be no one person that is bigger than the party.
Deft moves and the momentous declaration.
We didn't get any protection.
I'm not particularly against anybody.
We track and capture them all.
I don't believe we got federalism in politics.
Follow in-depth analysis and no-holds-barred interviews.
Armed forces of the country is well capable. They need the political will.
Are they just waking up from sleep? Is there complacency?
Feel the pulse of happenings in the political arena on AIT Democracy Today. Widely acclaimed authority on politics. Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. Nigerian time.
Hello, everyone. Excellent morning to you. This is Kakaaki Social. I'm Onoshorena Obuzege. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Let's go over quickly to the space of social media and see what matters to you this morning. We have the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, saying insecurity in Nigeria is being sponsored by his political opponent, but is insisting he remains undeterred, declaring his intention to contest the 2027 elections while also defending borrowing as necessary when backed by a clear plan for repayment. He describes himself as a stubborn politician committed to pressing on and is assuring Nigerians that his administration will continue to work towards restoring security and meeting his financial obligations.
To the hand of agents, including my own enemies, who want to use insecurity to get rid of me. I'm a very stubborn politician. I just refuse to go. And I will campaign for my second term. If we have to borrow money, we borrow. It's not, borrowing is not a leprosy. We just have to work hard to be able to pay for it.
All right, let's take your reactions and this point saying what you think about this. Professor Anthony Ayodele says your incompetence is a problem, not your enemies. As a president, you have decided to focus more on your second term instead of addressing the problems at hand, which you were hired to tackle. Another reaction, Dr. Rukewa says, it is the height of irresponsibility to deflect the blame for insecurity to your enemies. Are you not the #1 security officer of the nation? Here you are talking about working hard to secure a second term when you haven't worked hard to improve the lives of the citizens. It says terrible. Another reaction, FX says, stubborn how? Those politicians you put hope in delivering results for you, we failed you completely. They go shop your money, steal, vote against you. Looks like FX test coming from Delta. I am Benjamin says, all the money from subsidy removal, new VAT increase, revenue earned by Nigeria. Yet, it has borrowed 72 trillion naira just in 22 months with no single thing to show for it. Healthcare, infrastructure, jobs, education, good roads and electricity, all zero. Nobody steals power to benefit the people. Quoting Dele Farotimi right there, according to him. Lanre Adeniyi says, we don't have problems with you borrowing. All Nigerians care for is you telling us what exactly you have done with the one borrowed and to tell us what you intend to do with the one you want to borrow. All right, those are the reactions right there. Let's move on to have more stories. Also, there are reactions to President Bola Tinubu approving the allocation of land in Abuja to ambassadors and high commissioners designate. For the president, it's part of efforts to make them comfortable. And according to FCT Minister Nyesom Wike, who presented them with the land, this gesture is to ensure that when they visit Abuja from their respective countries to brief the president, they don't get to stay in hotels, but in their Abuja homes.
When I was coming this morning, the president called me and said, look, these ambassadors will be leaving Nigeria, and that he believed that from time to time they will come to Abuja to brief him on what is happening in the country where they serve. And I believe that most of them do not have a place in Abuja. And so he will encourage them to see how they put up where they can stay in Abuja when they come back home. And Mr. President directed that.
All right, let's see what you make and what your reactions to this story is on the space of X. Joseph is saying this is a largesse to people who are even yet to serve as ambassadors, and some may not even serve at all. What happens to public and civil servants who dedicate more years to national service? How do we measure and reward service to the nation? Another reaction, Dennis Jr. says, giving land to ambassadors who are already living a life of their dream, while those who sacrifice sleep to protect the country from danger are seriously suffering. Nigerian leaders are heartless and wicked. This user, Irene Zechuku, says politicians get richer doing little or nothing, while people doing the actual work earn peanuts, yet Nigerians are still expected to be patriotic. And Gato says, government by settlement, rub my back, I rub yours. It's only the elite that are being comfortable to the detriment of others, yet they are forcing the masses to support them. Who does that? Corruption and high-handedness at the highest levels. And he's seen hard right there. All right, from there, let's have some more stories, which will be that we have an official of NEPA, as we call them, this time from Bayelsa State, that is justifying why you have an hour of power supply for a month, yet they come for 100 pay for the charges.
you did not give us light. Suddenly, you just give us light for 1 hour. After how many weeks? And you come and you bring light bill. How does that work?
When light is given to people after a period of maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, and eventually an energy is being given to that neighborhood for 1 hour. Within that 1 hour, the people living around that area are going to perform the function they have not done for 1 month. They are going to on their freezers. They are going to on their washing machine. The same time, they are going to on their water pumping machine. They are going to on their oven to microwave everything. And they are going to engage in ironing. The clothes they are going to wear for 1 month because they don't know next time they are going to get the light. So these activities will happen in 1 hour. And the energy that's supposed to consume for 1 week have been consumed in 2 hours. And when a bill comes, people try to fight. Why are you giving me a bill after giving me? The energy consumption is not based on the hour. It's based on.
All right, let's see what you make as reactions to this. Ramsey B says, if you guys generate enough electricity to Nigerians, no need to be bothered about consumption. You can't keep generating megawatts the size of a local government in South Africa for a country as big as Nigeria and expect magic when it comes to transmission. Also in reaction, Gray Somai says, if demand is high, supply should follow. That's how it works. You are even the ones making money off of the electricity you provide. So it's not like you're doing us a favor. Another reaction, H.S. Zona says, it's unbelievable the level of incompetence, ineptitude, and unprofessionalism that is on display from public servants. But of course, we always have someone from the other side. Durabon says, this man is simply making an argument for the cost of electricity and not justifying its absence. But look at the comment, for God's sake. Whether you consume 100 kilowatt per hour in 1 week or 1 day, the cost is still the same. He never said you should have only 100 kWh. I have constantly screamed about the comprehension deficiency we have in this country, especially among so-called educated youth. And yes, finally on the program this morning, we'll go to Delta State, where the biggest story from the week, of course, has been. And this time we have the mother who is speaking tough and saying that this is the second son that she's losing to police brutality and extrajudicial killing. So the mother of OG Milan, he scored really on the space of social media as a musician, has said that this is the second time she's losing her son to police brutality. And just in case, if you miss the conversation, it should be that the mother of the 28-year-old Mine Ogidi, that's a victim of extrajudicial killing in Delta State, has accused police operatives of killing her 2 sons in separate incidents. She claims this is a second son she has lost under similar killings, as in 2022. She lost her son to police killed the younger brother to this one they just killed. Meanwhile, the IGP has announced the dismissal of ASP Usman Nuhu, who killed the victim. He will also be prosecuted. Now, if you missed the story and the case, it's involving OG Milan, as it's called, as a musician. It stemmed from a police-led operation following intelligence that he was receiving a parcel suspected to contain a pistol and ammunition. The handover was said to have taken place at a park in Delta State, where police operatives were already present as part of a monitored interception. So the park that received it called the police to say, we suspect this is not what should go out, so please come. So they were there, and during the interrogation outside the station, he begged for his life in handcuffs, but the ASP, who is said to have been reformed from the defunct SARS to RRR, and he was even off duty that day. He shot this guy on his hand. He didn't die at the time. We're told that they went further and then shot him again before he died. Let's listen to the mother from there to the IGP.
The following recommendations have been made. Dismissal from service. The FDC and trial of ASP no unlawful homicide.
What you make of this on social media. AMG says 2 sons, 2 uniform. Or same uniform, no justice. A mother buried her future twice, while the badge still calls it operation. Nigeria isn't just losing citizens, it's losing trust, 1 bullet at a time. Another reaction now on Facebook. Vita Sokafo says, my question is, why did the delivery company accept a way bill without checking the content inside? And why the sudden check when it arrived? It's obvious that the person that received the way bill from the sender might have known what's inside. And why suddenly asking the receiver to open it? It sounds so strange. Secondly, why did the policeman that wasn't even among the police on duty decide to join them? Thirdly, why shooting the guy before arriving the station? It's so complicated that there might be something hidden about this and the guy might be innocent. Final reaction to that, Sahari Edokpolo says, I have seen a policeman challenge another policeman like him on the road, and also an army officer challenging another army officer when they see that the action is becoming something else. Unlike this very scene that this team or his team members were even hailing and praising him. Or more, if you ask me, I go tell you for free, say, na teamwork. Bring in that particular squad or team if you really want justice for this boy. An extended track-up of that conversations of the IGP says all of them are being queried for this. And final thought to this, it says they should give him the corpse to eat. See, innocent woman, you guys killed 2 of our children. And now why that guy, they shout? Because he knows how they killed his brother. How unfortunate again. Well, as we call it a day, today on Kakaaki Social, I'll leave you with a video of Pastor Jerry Eze of Streams of Joy and the EFCC chairman, Ola Olukoyede, who said that I investigated him for 6 months for money laundering, and I found out that there is nothing about him that is not clean. After that video, you will see Adora and her guests, because I am jumping off the set now, so we could come back here. I am Rena Obio. We'll see you again tomorrow. To have a good day.
I investigated this man for 6 months. Yeah, for money laundering. We work by intelligence, we work by petitions. At some point, I saw there was an account, a domiciliary account. Dollars, pounds were dropping in like raindrops, from Colombia, from America, from Sri Lanka, even from Togo. I said, who is this man? Yes, I've been hearing about his name, I've seen his face a couple of times. So, I never bothered about what he was doing. I knew he's a pastor. So they said this one, Pastor Jerry Eze of Streams of Joy. Go and investigate him. So we went to the investigation. We combed the books. Yes, we saw the money coming in. So my IO, my investigating officer, came to me one day and said, sir, this is the preliminary report. I said, I'd like to see this man. Go and invite him. I said, you know what? I didn't call you here to explain to me. We have already done our work.
My baba, they always say, for market, every day gets your own wahala. Sometimes people go on scam you. But Baba say, no be by gra. You must cool down, dey sharp. Because with OPay payment, your money go enter sharp, no story. But inside market, anything fit happen. One day, we no see phone again. My baba remember OPay USSD lock, dial *955*131#. Baba press lock account. from market woman to driver, from small boy to big man. Now, OPay, they protect people like us. My papa fit sell, press phone, collect POS, and still they teach me price. And when they don't tire am, go just tap OPay night guard. We no fear for this our hustle life. Now, OPay be the people payment shield.
Well, thank you very much for staying with us. We told you earlier we will be looking at the aviation sector this morning, especially with Nigeria's aviation industry once again edging towards crisis. The spiraling cost of jet A1 fuel threatens to ground domestic airlines and disrupt travel across the country, across different airlines. And what began as a steady rise in operating costs has now skyrocketed, snowballed into a full-blown emergency, with operators warning the flights may be suspended if urgent action is not taken. I mean, despite the fact that the president's approval of a 30% discount on outstanding debt, still this looms, and we want to really get ahead and see what the insights are, the background, and where we are with this narrative. I have with me Michael Achimugu, Director of Public Affairs and Consumer Protection at the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, here to discuss this with us and looking at Nigeria's aviation crisis and if we may be able to avert this emergency that is looming over us. It's great to have you on the show. You're welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. So let's begin first with maybe a situation update on what really is happening. I mean, there's a warning that there may be a shutdown of aviation sectors. Airlines especially are threatening to shut down because of the hike in prices if nothing changes. Now, has anything changed at all? And are the operations, the flight operations, operating today as we speak?
Yes, flights are operating. The fact that a strike has not actually commenced means that the Honourable Minister is on top of the situation. By that I mean Festus Keyamo, SAN, and also the DGCA, Captain Chris Najomo, both of whom have been in several meetings, endless meetings actually, with all stakeholders. Yes, the airlines did threaten to go on strike or to halt operations, but you recall that the Honourable Minister called for a meeting after which the 30% discount was given. Then the marketers, you know, and other service providers as well. But the Honourable Minister and the DGCA are on top of it.
Now, the price of the jet A1 fuel, aviation fuel surge of over 300% is alarming. And any airline operator or owner would really be worried about that, because you don't know whether there's an end in sight or if this is just, you know, an increase that is momentary because of the issues and crisis, of course, from the Ukraine, Iran, and of course Israeli and US war, and on perhaps the halt in the Strait of Hormuz. But do they have any costs to be worried, and what really behind the story? I mean, I know that you've given us an assurance here about the minister's work, but do they have a cost to be worried?
By worried, who do you mean? The
of course,
operators?
the airline, of course, the operators.
Well, speaking very honestly, as I always do, I've always maintained, especially when the airlines increased airfares astronomically in December, that it's Nigerians on Nigerians. Yes, situations arise once in a while that lead to increase in prices, generally across board in Nigeria and everywhere globally, in fact. But the exponential increase is worrisome. I spoke against the rise in airfares in December, and I'll take the same position today. However, this is what a free economy does. The NCA does not regulate prices. And so when these business concerns feel a need to do what they do, the best we can do is mediate, have meetings, and call everybody to order as best as possible. I don't sell fuel, neither does the CAA, so we cannot make determinations about the reasons for those increases. But we know that in aviation, every cost eventually is passed down to the passenger. So this can be very inconveniencing for air travelers, and we don't want to see that in our country. Some airlines are reacting by reducing their operations. You know, those who fly, say, 8 times a week, now cutting it down to 3 times a week, you know, so they can manage operational costs. But because the Honourable Minister is on it, we expect a resolution very quickly.
Okay, so now the meeting that was convened with the minister, did he end in a deadlock with sticky points? I mean, I know you've spoken about that there was a meeting and with operators and some of these evaluations on the 30% and all of that came out of that. Did it end well? What was the final outcomes? What was the, perhaps would I use the word memorandum of understanding between the ministry and operators?
Well, discussions are still ongoing, but the fact that no strike has commenced means that all stakeholders involved are willing to, resolve the issue. So when the Honourable Minister returns to Nigeria in the couple of days, we'll have feedback on that. Yeah.
Now, I hope that we have feedback on that because and then there will not be strike before that feedback. And so, yes, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, the federal government, like we saw, announced a 30% discount reduction in aviation-related taxes as part of efforts to ease the burden on airlines. A lot of people commended that. The airline acknowledges that. They say the gesture is a good one, but then it still falls short of addressing the root problem. If you give them 30% of the debt they owe, it still does not mean that the issues have been taken away. So between the debt relief or the debt concession of 30% and the issues that loom, where then does the ministry think that the conversation should go? Because they have said, regardless of that 30%, which is a good gesture, that still the roots of the problem still remains, and which of course is the hike in the Jet A1 fuel. How do you hope to resolve that?
Globally, government supports airlines. It's part of the Honourable Minister's 5-point agenda, support for domestic stakeholders, not just the airlines, even the caterers and other service providers as well. You may recall that not too long ago, the Honourable Minister instructed international airlines to patronize Nigerian catering companies.
Okay.
Yeah, and this has worked well for the sector. But you see, the thing is, Mr. President has done the right thing. It's a show of support to keep these airlines alive and to help Nigerian travelers continue to travel. However, these airlines must also reciprocate the good gesture and support of Mr. President and the Honourable Minister by also, fixing their operations in a way that is satisfactory, to everybody concerned. It's not enough to just support them. I believe personally that some airlines do need to change their management. And I say this very firmly because the conversations, I don't want these conversations to end around jet fuel. Jet fuel prices will rise and fall, but they are not the only reasons for all of the disruptions that we are experiencing. In the midst of it, we still have bird strikes, we still have operational inefficiency by some airlines, and so every airline must look to fix its internal operating systems such that, most of the problems, the challenges that passengers face are mitigated. I don't accept the excuse of jet fuel being the major issue even at the moment, because if you have a flight in 4 hours and you haven't gotten fuel, you have no assurance of getting fuel, why are you still selling tickets to passengers, taking their monies? And if those flights get cancelled, refunding becomes an issue. Last night, a 5 p.m. flight, passengers did not depart until 3:30 a.m. this morning. Issues like this have nothing to do with Jet A fuel exclusively. And so we are looking, the Honourable Minister and the DGC are already talking. In fact, that is why my DG, approved for me to speak here today, because he's quite concerned. And we want to deal with all of these issues holistically, not just centering it around Jet A fuel.
Okay, so I hear you, and some people are also saying that indeed what you're saying is correct because operation is also part of it. Yeah. But again, you cannot also remove the prevailing cost pressure that the increase and hike in Jet A fuel would cost, because one would say, you cannot wrap it out to paper. So if you are having an increase in Jet A1 fuel and there's a hike in price, the tickets also, some would say operators would have to increase to be able to measure up, sustaining the cost of operation. Now, short of saying that I hear you say operations also is part of the issues airlines should deal with, but in terms of meeting them on perhaps to have like a roundtable conversation, I heard that you say that it's going to come up as a cause of conversation in progress. Isn't it also to see this as a critical way to maybe come to some sort of consensus? Because if you say the hike and the increase in aviation fuel is one problem on the other side, but operations is more important, they may consider that maybe you are probably throwing away the baby and the bathwater. So how do you begin to look at both the hike in aviation fuel and operations as one clause of concern and present them as a joint consensus?
Yeah, this is why the conversations need to happen. And the Honorable Minister has shown leadership in this regard. This isn't my purview, you know, and you recall the Honorable Minister has already, issued a statement in this regard. So we are waiting for an update from the Minister, consequent upon his various meetings with all of these stakeholders. We definitely, just like FS rise and fall, I believe that the jet fuel issue will be resolved very, very shortly. We must continue to be hopeful. If the war didn't happen, perhaps there would have been no excuse. But I will always say this: we have a national culture that sometimes, one must frown upon. It's not just in aviation. Across all businesses in Nigeria, the moment there's a little excuse, Nigerians do these things to Nigerians. That, like, I heard the chairman of Airpeace, Alion Yima, mentioning that, it's supposed to be around 70 to 90% increment, but it's so exponential, it's affecting their operations in, the way it is. But the thing is, why would any marketer do that? But you see, I need to limit the things I say about this because I didn't sit in those meetings. I do not have a full picture. So we wait for, updates from the minister. But speaking to all businesses, and especially the marketers at this point, please, show responsibility. Show a humane face to this business so that Nigerian passengers can continue to travel safely.
Indeed.
Yes.
Now, talking about passengers, where does it leave all the Nigerian passengers? Because whether you like it or not, this development will bring an expected avalanche of complaints. How are you going to be dealing with that? And is it characters you're willing to manage?
My department, we're overwhelmed at the moment. Not much about the jet fuel thing, but the cancellations and the delays. And this is why I address the issue of, operational efficiency as well. So the jet fuel crisis exists. We already know it's already here. So how do you tweak your operations so that you do not lose efficiency and people do not suffer, more than necessary? How do you explain knowing in the morning that you do not yet have fuel? There's no hope for getting fuel. But you're still selling tickets today. And then flights for 10 a.m., people don't get to leave till 3 a.m. the next day. And then you don't comply with the regulations. This is why the DGCA, asked that I speak about this because, as far as he's concerned, sanctions are going to be met where necessary.
Indeed.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Michael. And it's indeed very interesting that we're having this conversation because it's not really just very germane to Nigeria. Countries like South Africa, Ghana, even nearby countries are having, this kind of problem on aviation fuel. But again, they're also saying that, you have to cut measures to be able to balance the effect on passengers, and not just to shut down the entire aviation sector. Yeah. And so you must come to some sort of tea-table arrangement between yourselves and the airline operators. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Michael Echemigo, Director of Public Affairs and Consumer Protection at the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, has been our guest this morning to discuss really the aviation crisis. And he's assured, even though he says their department are overwhelmed, but, all foot are on ground and they will come to some sort of level-headed conclusion between now and the next 72 hours outpost of that meeting. Do have yourself a lovely day.
Thank you very much. Great. You too.
All right, we go to our third talking point this morning. We told you we have 3 consecutive interviews this morning. This time, my guest will be joining me virtually to bring highlights on this. And we're talking about the new ECOWAS Secretariat matters arising. And of course, as China goes on to their zero tariff policy for African nations, they spearhead that conversation with, of course, flagging of the new ECOWAS Secretariat headed here in Nigeria. And seeing that flag off, a lot of people are saying, well, kudos, but then then what does this also mean for China in all of this? But that will be a talk for another day. I have Leonard Arrow, Media Development, Social Transformation and Environment Affairs Analyst, joining me this morning. And it's great to have you on the show. Good morning. You're welcome.
Good morning. Good to be back here again.
Great. It seems you're glad with this story, the way you're smiling. Perhaps maybe let me know. You're not one of the skeptics, I hope. All right. Okay.
Well, it's good. It's good for those of us who ply the airport road. You know, it's good to see that structure there. And it's also brought some local. So if you've been plying that area over the past, you'll see there's also a military presence there and all that. So it's good news. Beautiful building. We hosted a couple of people from the new ECOWAS building. You know, it's beautiful. So it's a nice development, even though there are issues to talk about. Yeah, but it's a nice development.
All right. Now, it's not difficult to commend the speed at which this happened. It was very fast, completed over and handed over in 24 months. That's quick speed, if you ask me. And to construct and another 5 months to hand over. You know, I think this is the fastest we've seen anything, you know, like this happen. But it also showed proactiveness on the part of the Chinese government. So the Chinese say the new facility is a gift to ECOWAS aimed at helping the sub-regional body to activate, you know, to implement, to symbolize unity, and to also strengthen the ability of ECOWAS to manage its regional issues. What do you make of this? I mean, there was nothing about what China gains from it, but what do you make of this?
It's a good gift. Okay, but no gift comes with something else. You know, in the country today, someone was telling me I was doing something for someone, and I was asked, no, tell me, what's in it for you? What's in it for you? And I think ECOWAS has not really asked that question. But for those of us who watch international politics, we know that it's obvious. Okay, China over time has been trying to let me say, increase its influence in Africa. The truth about it is that the world has come to know that Africa cannot be suppressed anymore. So you have to find a way to be on the good books of Africa in order to have global influence. So China, while the West was still trying some of those old politics using World Bank, IMF, all those kind of ways to get into Africa, and now they've hit some real hard rocks, see what's happening in those other African, West African countries that break away and all that. China was quietly strategizing and thinking of other ways. Now look at the Statue of Liberty in the United States. As great as the United States is, you know, that's one of the most iconic structures there. Now you cannot talk about the US structures and not mention that and not say it was donated by France. That is the thing. So China has now built the AU Secretariat. Now they've done ECOWAS, which is Nigeria is the biggest economy in Africa. Nigeria is the global power. The day Nigeria wakes up, the world would listen. So there's a lot of Chinese presence here now. So you cannot talk about certain developments in Nigeria today without mentioning China. And you're not going to mention the US and other Western countries. Look at the rail, look at so many other things, the Abuja airport and all that, without mentioning China. And what that means is that for all those who also look up to Nigeria, and for every conversation Nigeria intends to also have with other international parties, China will be in that. And China, when Nigeria was playing Brother Africa, we did not think of what would make our name stick in those countries. That's why South Africa can say anything they like now. Liberia, Sierra Leone, they're all there. Angola, Namibia. I was talking to colleagues from Southern Africa yesterday, and I was telling them a lot of them did not even know what Nigeria did for their countries in Southern Africa, because we don't really have anything that they wake up one day and they look at that structure or something and say, hey, Nigeria was our big brother. We don't have. But the Chinese, they've planted their name here now, and it's going to be very difficult to uproot it. And that is a big plus for China.
Okay, so, I'm asking this question because it's not just Nigeria. We're talking about the ECOWAS Secretariat. So that's the Economic Community of West African States. You're talking about the ECOWAS bloc countries within this region. So, and it also shows that a lot of the design, the architectural foundation, diplomacy, consideration in terms of how conversations will happen within the Secretariat are done through the Chinese formula. You would find that even the language system, the transcription, all of that, when you look at how the setup is done in the Secretariat, there is all evidence of Mandarin infusion in that category. So one would say, is the intel really pro-African? Is the foundation really, created to protect the intelligence, the kind of diplomacy and foreign-related affairs that would happen within the West African sub-region in that secretariat without a breach of sovereignty?
I don't think so. In fact, the first thing that got me upset, forget my smile now, the first thing that got me upset when I watched the clips on TV, saw the pictures on print and all that, was the bold Chinese inscription there when the key was being handed over, that bold Chinese inscription. See, even if someone is giving you a gift, you should not just be in that beggarly and helpless mood where you don't dictate certain issues. We are still not through with the controversy over the AU building and the servers and the issue about information, certain, data being transmitted to Chinese server. And now we have the other thing about this building is that it's a smart building. It's full of a lot of technological inputs. Mm-hmm. Everything is smart there, and it's Chinese technology. So the question is, who manages it? The other question is, what kind of supervision did ECOWAS give when doing that? Now, you see the speeches of even our foreign minister, the ECOWAS people, officials, and everybody. Nobody said anything about this. Nobody gave us any clue to show that ECOWAS is really fully in control or has any mechanism to do that. Nobody talked about what kind of audits will be done over that structure to ensure that information is kept here, to ensure that nothing is being breached. See, the world now, it's data that is the world. Data is key in anything you want to do. Look at the Iran-US war. It's all about information, data, and all that. That's the new espionage. That's the new money making. That's the new everything. Once you have data, you have a lot of control. Now, nobody has come out to address that. And that is a worry. That's a worry because even the AU had to change their servers, which means that there truly was some kind of suspicion or something like that. And that is very dangerous. And I think that's something we need to address. The other issue that has come up, which I also think, earlier today you talked about malaria issues, the aviation sector is there. People have said, okay, the entire ECOWAS region, it's in poverty. There's the illegal mining going on, which a lot of Chinese firms have been found to be part of. There are so many other things going on. Okay, why can't these gifts? We have the electricity situation. We imported about 70-80% of our generators from China. Why can't some of these gifts be plowed into actual items and things that could upgrade, uplift the status of the average Nigerian? Poverty, there are health issues, there are so many issues that we could deal with as the U.S. funding is stopping. Are there things, do we have Chinese building primary healthcare centers everywhere? Now, where that building is situated, the entire airport road stretch, there is no general hospital there. So if you only have the FMC at the Jabi axis, so if someone living in Lugbe or beyond Lugbe, Sabo, and all those kind of places have an emergency, where do they go to? The cancer center is there on Airport Road, still uncompleted. Why can't these gifts be in some of these, sectors that would really aid growth and well-being of the average West African? So there are questions there that need to be answered, and nobody has addressed it. And I don't think the ECOWAS, from their comments, they've not really thought about this. So if someone is giving you a gift, you don't sell yourself off totally. You should be able to put some things in place that could, help. And for instance, was our own local, what's it called, companies and all that involved? When we talk about capacity building and all those kind of things. So there are so many issues left hanging.
All right, thank you so much. I mean, it's critical what you've said, and I wish we could continue this conversation to look at, what the priorities should be for ECOWAS, especially looking at democratic stability around the region with countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger and all of that, and, breaking away from the ECOWAS bloc. Again, overall, $348 billion have been spent on FDI by China. In West Africa alone, Nigeria accounts for at least $77 billion as of 2024. So the money keeps increasing, and of course, the debt profile as well. But like you said, eyes on the ball. Let's see how this goes on, and I'm sure there'll be an update after this launch and unveiling. And I'm sure there is a story behind the story, but we'll get up to date with you on that, soon enough in the nearest future. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Leonard.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
God bless.
God bless you. All right, from the state of, handing over ECOWAS Secretariat to the state of human rights, and that's where we'll go now to get some humanitarian stories, and Omoyo Baki will be bringing us that. Stay with us.
Welcome to another episode of State of Human Rights on Kakaaki, the African Voice. I am Omoyo Baki. We have reached the finale of our special series chronicling the 30-year journey of the National Human Rights Commission, NHRC. Over the past few weeks, we looked back at the Commission's history, its victories, and its challenges in enforcing human rights in Nigeria. Today, we turn our gaze forward. In this episode, we'll continue to explore the works of the current administration, its impact in human rights promotion, the future of the NHRC, and what the next decade holds for human rights advocacy in the country. So join me, let's find out.
Strengthening the NHRC's institutional capacity has been another hallmark of Dr. Ojukwu's administration. Since assuming office, he has expanded the Commission's presence by establishing 12 additional state offices, ensuring coverage across all 36 states. The NHRC has embarked on construction of 10 prototype permanent state offices. This is to ensure compliance with the Paris Principles. The new prototype offices are located in Lagos, Ekiti, Rivers, Benue, Abuja Metropolitan Office, Imo, Anambra, Adamawa, Kebbi, and Katsina States. Under the leadership of Dr. Tony Ojukwu, the National Human Rights Commission has been formally designated as Nigeria's National Preventive Mechanism, NPM, through the presidential order in line with Nigeria's obligation under the optional protocol to the Convention Against Torture, OPCAT. There is no doubt that these accomplishments have also impacted positively on Nigeria's human rights rating within the international community. Little wonder the Commission has retained its A status accreditation for the 5th time by the Global Alliance of National Human Rights Institutions. Promoting, protecting, and enforcing human rights is not a task for the Commission alone. To strengthen this work, the NHRC has established specialized working groups, including National Working Group on Business and Human Rights, National Working Group on Migration and Human Rights, National Working Group on Civic Space and Human Rights, Disability Inclusion Technical Working Group, Joint Committee on Access to Justice. These groups work across different sectors to ensure human rights are respected and fulfilled for all. leading regional human rights collaborations. Dr. Tony Ojukwu's leadership extends beyond Nigeria, as he was recently elected president of Network of National Human Rights Institutions in West Africa. In this capacity, he is committed to strengthening regional cooperation and capacity building among West African countries. The National Human Rights Commission, despite its expanded mandate, continues to face major challenges that severely limit its effectiveness. Inadequate funding remains one of the Commission's biggest setback from inception. The NHRC has operated within limited financial resources, leaving the Commission under-equipped and without the necessary tools to carry out their work.
To some of the challenges we are having, in the process of handling this number of complaints, we need to digitize our processes. We require all the equipment, computers, laptops, and internet facilities to be able to fully digitize our operations, and that's a lot. We don't have the resources, we don't have the money, our budgetary allocation compared to the number of complaints we get and the ability to resolve them is a far cry. I'll give you an example. We get to 10 million, we get 1 million or 2 million complaints a year. Our budget is 8 billion a year, which includes staff salaries, transportation, and everything. And of course, we have challenges in terms of even the manpower to do our work. Yes, we may have staff, but we need to do some strategic engagement with staff, engaging staff in special areas of need.
These factors create significant obstacles, preventing the NHRC from fully delivering on its mandate to promote and protect human rights across Nigeria. To address these challenges, there is need for the Commission to work harder to deliver on its mandate, while leveraging on partnership of stakeholders and relevant organizations to advance the cause of human rights in Nigeria. There is a great need to further amend the NHRC Act of 2010. This will, among other things, strengthen its independence, enhance its enforcement powers, increase its funding capacity, as well as enhance human rights accountability. Years ago, it began under the clouds of doubts. Today, the National Human Rights Commission stands as a beacon of hope, an institution that grew from controversy to credibility. Its story is not just about an agency, it's about a nation's journey from repression to reform, from silence to speech, from fear to freedom. With adequate funding, stronger legislation, and solid institutional capacity, the NHRC can do better. As Nigeria moves forward, the NHRC remains a guardian of the nation's conscience, reminding us all that the true measure of democracy lies not in power, but in the protection of human dignity.
Congratulations to the National Human Rights Commission on the 30 years of standing as a beacon of hope, defending vulnerable, speaking for the silent, and holding the promises of justice high. Your work matters because human rights are the foundation of peace, equality, and dignity. We have achieved much together, yet the journey continues. The UN Nigeria stand with you. Let us deepen our partnership, amplify a voice, and embed dignity, equality, and justice in the daily life of all Nigerians. The Commission has come far. Its courage inspires all of us. Its commitment challenges us to do more. Congratulations to the National Human Rights Commission. May the next decade shine brighter, stronger, and fairer for every citizen.
That concludes our retrospective on the NHRC. Be sure to join us next week as we bring you more insights into the state of human rights in Nigeria. But before we go, we want to remind you that the National Human Rights Commission is always open to hearing from you. If your rights or the rights of someone you know have been infringed upon, please, you can reach the NHRC on its toll-free number on 6472. That is 6472. And this is where we wrap up this week's episode of State of Human Rights on Kakaaki, the African Voice. Until next time, I am Omoye Ogbaki. Bye for now.
Well, thank you so much, Omaya, for that, bringing us highlights from the Human Rights Commission. And I'm talking about human rights, really, with the appointment of Bianca Odumegwu-Ojukwu as the Foreign Affairs Minister. Nigerians in diaspora, especially in South Africa, called for more humanity for Nigerians living in South Africa. We hope that with this new appointment and the effectiveness of the conversation with Ramaphosa in South Africa would put Nigerians in Nigerian eye, Nigerians first. Thank you so much for joining us, and it's been a great day doing this with you. I hate to leave you, but I love you and I have to go. My name is Adora Sidney Jack. Goodbye.